Taylor Kitsch had been doing press for weeks, bouncing from city to city, promoting his new series with the kind of energy he wasn't sure he still had in him. The project meant a lot to him. It was darker, grittier, and closer to the kind of roles he'd been chasing for years, roles that stripped away the Hollywood sheen and forced audiences to look deeper. Still, by the time he walked onto the set of the Clarkson show, he was running on fumes. The audience erupted into applause when his name was announced. Taylor pushed through the curtain, flashing that easy grin he had practiced over the years, and waved at the crowd. Kelly stood to greet him, her usual warmth radiating, and he hugged her politely before sitting in the plush armchair across from her. On the surface, it was business as usual. Cameras whirred, stage lights bathed everything in gold, and the house band faded into silence. "Ladies and gentlemen," Kelly began, beaming at her audience, "you know him from Friday Night Lights, from True Detective, from blockbuster films, and now he's starring in a powerful new drama. Please welcome Taylor Kitsch." The crowd clapped and cheered again, some holding signs with his name scrawled across them. Taylor gave a small wave, his posture relaxed, but his eyes carried a guarded sharpness. The opening minutes went smoothly enough. Kelly asked about his time in Texas filming Friday Night Lights. Taylor chuckled, reminiscing about long days on the field, the heat, the camaraderie. "It was family, man," he said, his voice dipping into that Texan drawl he'd perfected years ago. "We didn't know that show would still be talked about, but it shaped me." Kelly followed with a light-hearted question about his hair, pulling up a picture of his famously long mane from his early days. The audience laughed, and Taylor played along, running a hand through his now shorter cut. "Yeah, that hair had its own agent," he joked. The room erupted with laughter, and even Kelly slapped the desk in delight. For a moment, everything was easy, the tension of his exhaustion softened by nostalgia. But then, the shift happened. Kelly leaned in slightly, tilting her head, and asked, "So, Taylor, I gotta ask, you've been called, how do I say this nicely, intense, on set. Some people have even said you can be difficult. What do you say to that?" The audience chuckled softly, some expecting Taylor to brush it off with a witty retort. Instead, his smile vanished. He blinked once, slowly, as though measuring his words. "Who said that?" he asked, his voice low but edged with steel. Kelly tried to laugh it off. "Oh, you know how it is, Hollywood loves to talk. I'm just giving you a chance to clear the air." Taylor leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring at her. "See, that's the thing. You bring up a rumor on national television, and now I'm supposed to defend myself against it, like I'm on trial." "Who said that, Kelly?" "Because I work my ass off. Every day, and I don't take kindly to lazy speculation." The room grew quieter. The audience, sensing the tension, stopped chuckling. Kelly's smile faltered just a fraction, but she pressed on, trying to keep her tone upbeat. "Taylor, come on, I didn't mean anything by it. You know this show, we like to keep it real, have some fun." Taylor shook his head and gave a sharp laugh that wasn't amusement at all. "Fun? This is fun to you? Bringing up gossip instead of my work?" Kelly's eyes widened slightly. "Hey, I'm just saying what people wonder about. You've been in the industry a long time, and people are curious." The camera cut to the audience, who sat stiffly in their seats, glancing at each other. The air was heavy with discomfort. Taylor straightened, his voice louder now. "Curious? About what? Whether I'm some diva on set, whether I tanked my career with one bad movie. You want me to sit here and laugh it off so it makes a good clip for YouTube? That's not me. I'm not a damn meme." Kelly lifted her hands in a placating gesture. "Whoa, okay, I didn't mean to upset you. We can move on, let's talk about the new series." But Taylor was past the point of calming down. Years of bottled-up frustration seemed to pour out of him in those few moments. "No, let's talk about it. Let's talk about how the second a movie doesn't make $1 billion, I'm a failure. How every time I take a role, people compare it to some box office number from 10 years ago. You think that's easy? You think it's easy to rebuild when all anyone remembers is a headline?" Gasps echoed through the audience. Kelly, visibly uncomfortable but still trying to manage the show, reached for her cue cards. "Taylor, I get it, but I really think people love you." "Love me?" Taylor cut in, standing abruptly. His chair scraped against the stage floor with a screech that made the microphones crackle. He grabbed his water bottle from the side table, his jaw set, his eyes blazing. "Love me when it's convenient, you mean? Love me when they can laugh at me. I don't need this. Kelly stood too, her voice rising in urgency. Taylor. Wait, don't go, let's just. But he was already walking off, his broad shoulders tense as he moved toward the curtain. The camera struggled to keep up, catching the last shot of his back before he disappeared from view. The studio fell into stunned silence. A few audience members clapped nervously, unsure of what to do. Others whispered, phones already in their hands to tweet about what they had just witnessed. Kelly exhaled slowly, turned back to the camera, and forced a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Well, live TV, folks. You never know what's gonna happen. The band struck up a quick, awkward tune, trying to mask the discomfort as the show cut to commercial. Backstage, Taylor paced in circles, running a hand through his hair, muttering under his breath. They ambushed me. That wasn't the deal. That wasn't what I agreed to. His publicist rushed in, eyes wide with panic. Taylor, we need to fix this. You can't just storm off live television. I'm not going back out there, Taylor snapped. I'm done. I've been done. In the studio, Kelly sank into her chair during the break, staring down at her cue cards. She hadn't meant to provoke him, not like that. Her producers hovered nearby, whispering frantically about damage control, about editing the segment, about what would go viral. Kelly rubbed her temple and thought, this is going to follow both of us for a long time. And she was right. By the time the show ended, clips of Taylor's walk-off were already being uploaded online, spreading like wildfire. The clash between Taylor Kitsch and Kelly Clarkson was no longer just a talk show hiccup, it was a headline, a spectacle, and the beginning of a storm neither of them could contain. The clip of Taylor storming off Kelly Clarkson's stage spread faster than anyone could have imagined. Within an hour, it was plastered across Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, the moment replayed over and over with different captions. Taylor loses it on Kelly Clarkson, actor storms off in live meltdown, and awkwardest talk show moment of 2025. Some edited it into memes, adding dramatic explosions and music over his exit. Others slowed it down, analyzing every twitch of his face, every word he spat out like it was courtroom evidence. By the end of the day, the hashtags #Taylor storms off and #Kelly showed down were trending worldwide. Fans, journalists, and critics swarmed the moment with opinions. Some defended him fiercely. He's human, not a puppet for entertainment, one fan wrote. Good for Taylor for standing up to the toxic side of talk shows. Others were far less kind. What an unprofessional baby. He should be grateful anyone still cares about him after John Carter. The debates raged on, each side convinced they were right, each tweet or post adding more fuel to the fire. Taylor, however, wasn't watching. He had retreated to his Austin home the next morning, shutting himself off from the whirlwind. His phone vibrated nonstop with calls from his agent, his publicist, his co-stars, and even old friends he hadn't spoken to in years. But he ignored them all, tossing the device onto his kitchen counter and pacing the room instead. He replayed the moment in his head, hearing the scrape of the chair, the silence of the crowd, the forced calm in Kelly's voice as she tried to stop him. It burned like acid. To Taylor, the walk-off wasn't just about one bad question. It was about everything he'd been carrying for years. The headlines that had mocked him. The box office failures that had been pinned squarely on his shoulders. The interviews that always circled back to the same mistakes, as though nothing else he did mattered. He had clawed his way through roles that challenged him, roles that demanded grit and vulnerability. Yet still, in the eyes of the world, he was the guy from that flop. Kelly hadn't meant to twist the knife, but she had, and Taylor's patience had finally snapped. Meanwhile, Kelly and her team were scrambling. In her dressing room after the show, she sat on the couch replaying the clip on her phone, her heart sinking deeper each time. She hadn't expected things to spiral that way. She admired Taylor. Truly, she'd been excited to talk about his new series, even watched several episodes ahead of time. But in her attempt to keep the show playful and candid, she'd crossed an invisible line. I pushed too far, she admitted quietly to her producer. I didn't mean to, but I did. The producer shook his head. You were doing your job, Kel. He overreacted. That's on him. But Kelly wasn't so sure. She knew what it was like to be judged, to have every word or move dissected. Fame had its privileges, but it also had razor-sharp edges. She sat with the guilt for hours before finally deciding. She would address it on her next episode, directly and without spin. The following day, her show opened not with music and laughter, but with Kelly sitting alone on her stage, speaking into the camera. "I want to talk about what happened yesterday," she began, her voice steady but softer than usual. "Taylor Kitsch is someone I respect, and our conversation didn't go the way either of us wanted. I asked a question that upset him, and he walked off. I never intended to make him feel cornered or disrespected. Sometimes things land differently than we mean them to, and I just want to acknowledge that." The audience clapped supportively, some even rising to their feet. Online, reactions to her statement were mixed. Some praised her maturity, calling it a graceful handling of the situation. Others accused her of damage control, saying she was trying to protect her own image at Taylor's expense. Either way, the moment only added another layer to the saga. Taylor's silence lasted 3 full days. His publicist begged him to release something, anything, to control the narrative. Finally, exhausted from the constant buzzing of his phone and the relentless media speculation, Taylor sat at his desk and scribbled down words that came straight from his gut. The statement they released wasn't polished or crafted for optics. It was raw. "I walked off because I refused to be defined by rumors. I've made mistakes, but I've worked hard to move past them. I respect Kelly Clarkson, but I won't apologize for standing up for myself." The internet lit up again. His fans flooded the comments with heart emojis and praise. "This is why we love you, Taylor." Others mocked him mercilessly. "Oh please, he's acting like he's the first celebrity to be asked a tough question." The divide deepened, but one undeniable outcome emerged. People were suddenly more interested in his new series than ever before. Streaming numbers spiked. Critics who had planned to ignore the show suddenly penned think pieces about its themes of redemption, mirroring Taylor's very public battle. Behind the numbers, though, Taylor didn't feel like he was winning. The attention made him feel exposed, not celebrated. "It's not about the show," he muttered to his friend over the phone one night. "It's about me being a headline again. That's not what I want." His friend paused, then said, "Maybe it's not what you want, but it's what you needed. People are talking about you. Not about the past, about now." Taylor wasn't convinced. Weeks passed, but the story refused to die. Every red carpet appearance, every podcast, every interview circled back to the walk-off. "Would you do it again?" journalists asked. "Do you regret it?" Taylor gave careful, measured answers, but inside he still felt the sting. The true test came at an industry gala in Los Angeles, where Taylor and Kelly were both scheduled to appear. Whispers spread as soon as they arrived. Would they cross paths? Would there be another blow-up? The cameras followed their every move, eager for the next headline. At one point, Kelly spotted Taylor across the ballroom, standing stiffly near the bar, his eyes scanning the crowd like a soldier on guard. She hesitated, then took a breath and walked toward him. The room seemed to hush, dozens of curious eyes tracking the moment. When she reached him, she offered a smile, small but genuine. "No hard feelings?" she asked, extending her hand. Taylor looked at her for a long beat. The noise of the gala blurred in his ears, the cameras flashing like fireworks around them. Finally, he shook her hand, his grip firm but not hostile. "No hard feelings," he said quietly. But in his eyes, there was more, a weight of everything left unsaid, the scars of the moment they'd shared on live television. The crowd exhaled as though they'd been holding their breath. Photographers snapped away, capturing what would become the truce handshake. Photos splashed across magazines the next day. For the world, it was closure. For Taylor, it was just another chapter. He knew the questions would linger, the opinions would never fade, but at least he'd face the storm on his own terms. As the night wore on, he stepped outside for air, staring at the city lights. Fame was fickle, he realized. It could tear you apart and put you back together in the same breath. Maybe this clash, this walk-off, wasn't the end of his story. Maybe it was just the messy, human reminder that no matter how polished the stage lights made things seem, everyone had limits. And sometimes, walking away wasn't weakness. It was the only way to hold on to yourself.